Give it up for Chuck.
Okay, very honored to be here at this rally. I think it's the first rally at Hanford on nuclear issues in quite some time. I thought it was possibly the only one, but Peter Burgell informs me that there was one about at least 15 or 20 years ago that he's aware of. FFTF, 7 years ago. All right. So, what is the job that we need to do to deal with the problems that we have at Hanford? As I see it, we have two major responsibilities. One is obvious, the complete cleanup as thoroughly as possible. Others have addressed this and will address it. We shouldn't add any additional waste to what's already this already contaminated site. Hanford is already the most contaminated nuclear site in North America. Number two responsibility is just as critical, if not more so. We must not do anything that risks a catastrophic accident that would spread radiation throughout the region and undo all the good work that's being done. These are obvious. Right now there are two sources of potential catastrophic accident at Hanford. One is the waste vitrification plant, where there's a potential of a criticality accident that whistleblowers now say is possible. And the second is the Columbia Generating Station, nuclear power plant, which has been quietly operating at Hanford for nearly 30 years. The CGS nuclear power plant is what I want to talk about today. Most people in the Northwest don't know about it. It's the last remaining nuclear power reactor from the 1970s and 80s. Originally there were 20 planned for the Pacific Northwest. The Washington Public Power Supply System, WPSS, unfortunate acronym, was planning on building 5 of them, 3 at Hanford and 2 on the coast near Grays Harbor, but only the second of the 5 was completed, WPSS number 2. Trojan, the only other plant in the Northwest, was shut down in 1994, thanks in large part to the work of the previous speaker, Mr. Marbett, and others. The CGS nuclear power plant began operation in 1983. It was scheduled to end operation in 2023. It's up for relicensing right now for an additional 20 years so that it would run until 2043. It's among 100 plants in the United States that are taking part in what you could call a nuclear experiment. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission is rubber stamping these plants and allowing them to be operated 20 years beyond the capacity that they were originally designed for. These plants were designed to last for 40 years. There was no plan or anticipation that they would be run for 60, and yet that's what they're planning on doing. It's really a form of Russian roulette. We can't be too sure exactly how many chambers the gun has, but we shouldn't be taking this chance. As we've seen with Fukushima, nuclear reactors, even in a technologically sophisticated country, can, through mistaken action or natural accident, condemn a place to hundreds, if not thousands of years of broadly spread contamination. There are a lot of similarities at the Columbia Generating Station to Fukushima. They're both GE boiling water reactors. The CGS is a slightly newer model, though it has some of the same problems. It has the same spent fuel problem, which is that it's located and elevated above the reactor. It's not hardened, so it's subject to earthquake damage, and could crack open and leak, just as Fukushima number 4 spent fuel pool has done, and it's an ongoing problem. They're very fearful at Fukushima right now that if there were another earthquake, that spent fuel pool might completely collapse and release all of the radioactive material from them. We'd have a second Fukushima with even more radiation released than the first. So that problem also exists at the Columbia Generating Station, that type of a design flaw. There are earthquake vulnerabilities here, major ones. Additional faulting at the Hanford site, which wasn't known when the plant was built. This is a seismically active area, and there have been minor tremors felt as recently as last summer with an epicenter of one of them near the Columbia Generating Station nuclear power plant. There's potential for major flooding in this area. The Grand Coulee Dam, if it were breached by a terrorist attack or an earthquake or some other reason, would actually make this area, Richland would be under 15 feet of water, according to Energy Northwest, which runs the Columbia Generating Station. This area where we are right now would be under 15 feet of water. They claim, however, that this would not affect the intake of cooling water to the reactors, and it wouldn't affect the backup generators. I think we need to check up on that claim. I can't for sure say that that's incorrect, but I think that's something that bears looking into. Finally, of course, we have the spent fuel, highly irradiated fuel that needs to be kept away from people for tens of years to avoid immediate death from exposure to the radiation from them, and then for hundreds of thousands of years to protect people from the poisons that are located in them. Still no plan for getting rid of that, and we're generating more and more of that at this reactor plant. And the operation of plants themselves. German and French studies have recently shown that there's increased childhood leukemia in the areas around these plants, within the 15-mile radius of these plants. Dr. Rudy Nussbaum, has been referenced previously by Lloyd and others, has done a paper on the German study, if you'd like to read that one as well. Finally, since we have two potential catastrophic accidents waiting to happen, either at the vitrification plant or at the Columbia Generating Station, again, you have a situation like Fukushima where if one of them goes, it could affect the operation, the safe operation of the other, and complicate it and make it possible to have both of them have accidents simultaneously. So, and of course that has never been taken into, in the relicensing, they never took any of this into account. They're just rubber stamping it and going forward. Okay, the one thing that the folks of Richland really need to consider, they're on the front lines here. They are the ones who would be suffering first. So rather than being an anti-Richland rally, as some has portrayed this is the biggest pro-Richland rally that they've had in a very long time. Oh, okay. Fukushima residents supported the local nuclear power plants until they melted down. It provided local jobs. The utility said that they had adequate safety plans, and the local people believed them. And this is no different than the situation today in the Tri-Cities. So what is at stake in a worst-case accident? The health, homes, and businesses of 250,000 plus people in the Tri-Cities, and many more thousands in neighboring communities. The high-value agriculture of the Columbia Basin, including the dairy, wheat, and wine industry. We're right at the confluence of the Columbia and Snake Rivers. A permanent contaminating taint of the Columbia River salmon runs is at risk. All of our hard work cleaning up the contaminated site at Hanford would be complicated beyond the ability to fix. In short, this area, like Chernobyl or Fukushima, becomes a national sacrifice zone and is uninhabitable. Okay, so this sounds pretty scary, but don't we need the power? Will we have enough power? Some people may ask. Will we have enough energy if we shut down the nuclear plant? Well, through the Congressional Act in the 70s, there's a net billing agreement to buy all of the electricity from the nuclear power plant here by Bonneville Power Administration. And it makes up about 12% of the electricity in the Bonneville Power Administration's power grid on average. So the most that any utility in this region uses from this nuclear power plant, if they bought all their power from BPA, would be 12%. A lot of them use a lot less. The average in Oregon is only 3% from the Columbia Generating Station, and the average in Washington is only 8%. Obviously, as Lloyd was saying, wind generation, we've got 4,000 megawatts of wind capacity and growing in this region. They're having to shut wind down right now because they're worried that that it'll compete with the hydro during the spring runoff. They did last year, and they may have to do it again this year. So at a time like this, we really can't afford to shut down this reactor. It was shut down for 8 months last year due to refueling, and then to fix a problem to replace some components that they needed to do that took longer than they originally thought it would. So it was down for 8 months through the entire summer, through the hottest months of the summer, and we didn't even feel it. Just as in Japan, they've managed to survive. Right now, they're using a lot of fossil fuels to do it, but they shut down all but one of their reactors right now, and somehow they've managed to live and survive that situation. So the question is, can we shut it down? We really can't. How do we do it? We really can't expect state politicians to do it right now. Governor Gregoire said last week that she was thrilled that the CGS nuclear power plant was nearly finished with its relicensing. I find that a chilling rather than a thrilling statement from her. The NRC has not denied a single plant relicensing and has refused to even slow down to consider the lessons of Fukushima before continuing to do so. The answer must come from the utilities that own the plant. Energy Northwest, formerly WHOOPS, now consists of 28 publicly owned utilities from Washington State. Publicly owned means the people who live in their districts elect the directors. Those directors elect representatives to the Energy Northwest Board. The Energy Northwest Board can shut down the nuclear power plant. So where are these utilities located? Well, right here in Richland, for one, is a municipal utility. Also Benton County, where we're located, and nearby Franklin and Grant counties. Along the Columbia River, we have Klickitat, Skamania, Clark, Cowlitz, Wahkiakum, and Pacific counties. Up the coast in the Olympic Peninsula, we have Grays Harbor, Jefferson, Clallam, Mason counties, and the city of Port Angeles. Moving up Puget Sound, we have Tacoma Power, Seattle City Light, Snohomish County, and Whatcom County. I'll bet most residents of Seattle don't know that they own a nuclear power plant. Going back east into the mountains, we have in the Columbia Plateau, we have, I'm not even sure if I'm going to pronounce this right, Kittitas County, Chelan, Okanagan, Ferry, Chelan, okay, Pend Oreille counties, and down in the Palouse, we have Asotin County. Asotin. Okay, well, I'm an Oregonian. You'll have to forgive my pronunciation. If you live in the service district of one of these utilities, you are part owner of the Columbia Generating Station, nuclear power plant. Congratulations. If that is the case, you and your friends and neighbors can start talking to your local utility directors and ask them where they stand on the nuclear threat to our region. If you don't like the answers, you can work together to elect new people to those boards. Oregon and Washington PSR, along with Heart of America Northwest, plan to begin organizing the communities that own the CGS nuclear power plant. We ask you to join us in doing so. In time, I believe we will yes, we will build the momentum to shut this inherently dangerous nuclear power plant down. As some of us have experienced on this issue in Oregon and on other issues of social change, the following quote from Mahatma Gandhi rings true. First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. Let's make that true by shutting down the Northwest's last remaining nuclear power plant and eliminating the chance for a Fukushima disaster on the Columbia River.